Welcome to Model Kit Stuff, where you'll find all of this. Painting up the capstans, we've got the white down, which we did in the same white that we used for the bow and the stern. I try and keep it to the same colours wherever I can, because that's the sort of the paints they would carry on board the ship. But the red, I'm using matte red 1047 from ICM, and we're just going to pick out in between the white there, leaving that little brass strip, hopefully. And then we can go in and paint the grey afterwards. Now, the white, being an enamel paint, needed just one coat. This red, it's a little bit translucent through the thinning process, I guess. It's just been thinned with water. And I think it might need 2 coats as a result. So as we start filling this in, you can see how the brass strips will just stand out. There we go. And then the top and bottom will be in the dark grey, so yeah, that's looking fairly good now. And then of course the other one will be green. I'm going to use 1067 ICM dark green for that, which is the closest match I've got. There we go. That's looking pretty cool. Right, I'll get this finished. So we can now start installing some of these parts that we've painted. So there's a little hatch that goes there. I think actually the moulded on part that was on the kit deck originally was more accurate than the Mark 1 replacement, but that's what we've got, so that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to put a small amount of medium CA in the centre of that location point there. And the reason why we painted this before we installed it is so that we can paint the sides without the risk of getting it on the deck. There we go. So that's our hatch on. And then we've got a couple of little lockers to install, but I want to put in our now completed capstans. Although they say completed, they've still got wheels to go on top, but we're going to install them separately onto there. So we'll do the green one. Easy to remember which side they go on. Port is red because port, as in the drink, is red. So I've just put some medium CA onto the underneath of the part. And that's our first capstan on. We'll do the same on this side. There we go, that's looking good. And then we've got these little lockers. So what I'm going to do here is put a small amount of glue in the centre. No, I'm not. I'm going to put it in the hole where the peg's going to go in, and the peg will draw that in. I did dry fit them earlier and they did fit in okay. Make sure we orientate them. There's a slope on them and the slope needs to face outboard. It would be so much easier to do this if I didn't have a camera right where my head wants to be. There we go, that's one. That's the other, so that's the skylights in as well. And we're off. We're starting to get bits on the deck. So that sort of completes my step 4, really. We've got the capstan tops to put on. I also want to put the depth marker decals on and painting the sonar at the front. And then before we move to the next step, step 6. So we can then move along. But I also, before we get too far down the line, need to clear coat the hull. And I think once we've done this little bit of detail painting on the sonars and the manganese strips, zinc strips, then that's the time to just clear coat the hull. So I think we'll probably do that next before we add anything too delicate, while we can still balance the centre of the ship on my sponge and just turn it upside down to coat it. We're doing the whole thing matte. Officially you'd do it satin, the above the boot line, but at this scale, with scale effect, it would appear to be matte, so we will do it matte. Okay. So my next step is to now turn to the stern area and do the same sort of items. So we're going to be bobbing back bow and stern a little bit while we put all the deck fittings in. And we've got a combination of kit parts, MK1 parts, and even further aftermarket parts in this area. So all these parts on the lower row here, these are all kit parts that don't get touched by any photo etch. So they're all cleaned up and they're ready to be painted. Over here we've got 2 different sizes of skylight. Now the kit part has the skylight moulded on, which I have sanded off smooth, ready for the photo etch. The MK1 set gives you options of open or closed. So basically there's a grill that's visible when it's open, and when it's closed there's a plate that goes on with a couple of handles on each side. So they were lifted off when they were open. Now I guess they were stowed nearby, put behind it, rested next to it, something like that. So I'm going to paint them all up. I'm going to do a combination of open and closed, and where we've got open ones I'm going to try and put the covers nearby, maybe resting on the bulkhead or something like that. It'll give a little bit of animation and a feel of reality to the model. This here, which is the device that is for the stern anchor, we have photo etch with the kit, and then we've got photo etch from the MK1 set. To be honest, there ain't much in it, but the MK1 set just has is just a little bit thinner on the outside rim, and so has a little bit more finesse. But you know, the kit parts equally as good. So if I bend or break that, I've still got a fallback. We've got a cable reel here. That is the kit part, and the kit part itself is okay, but the MK1 part is far superior, more authentic, and as you can see with the difference in the barrel sizes, the length and size is more accurate on the MK1 set. Then we've got this item here, and this has a moulded in door on the top, and then on the front there's a bit of photo etch that goes on and bends around. The MK1 set replaces that with one that's actually almost identical. It just has a little bit more detail. It's got a little relief border on it, so it just adds a little bit more detail. So we always go for a bit more detail. Now, neither the kit nor the MK1 set have captured the fact that there is a life ring on here. So what I've done is I've taken 1/2 of the life rings that are provided in the MK1 set. So the MK1 sets, they come double and you fold them over, and they become double thickness. So I've just cut 1/2 of that off, so it's a bit thinner, and we're going to stick that on there, and then we might have to paint the back because it overlaps, but on the actual ship it overlaps as well, so it's all good. So yeah, we've got that. Then we've got this here, and I've not yet sanded off the skylights, but we've got open and closed skylights. It's missing the skylights on the sides, which the MK1 set does provide. But on the end here, we've got a hose reel moulded in. And to be honest, the kit part is fairly nice, although it is slightly wrong in its position because they've centered it and it should be slightly off to one side. What they don't have is the pillar that goes with it, which stands alone and actually stands just on this point here. If I can get my camera to focus. So it actually stands on the deck next to it at the sharp end, if you like. So we need to clean all that off. I'm going to remove the fire hose reel and replace it with these 3D printed ones. So we'll put that one on, and then we'll put a pillar in the right place. Now they're showing the pillar here is black, but actually it should be red. So that's what we're going to do. We'll paint it red and put that in position. So I need to get this out and remove the parts for that. So we'll do that in a sec. And then there's some parts here in the MK1 set which are in addition to the kit, not provided by Trumpeter at all. So we've got the cover for the rear anchor chain, and then we've got a couple of locking positions for the anchor chain as well, similar to what we've done on the bow. In fact, it's exactly the same part. You fold it up and what have you. So quite a bit to do. Most of this is ready for painting. We just need to glue on the photo etch, and I've just got that to clean up, and my first dabble into this brand of 3D printed parts. Now I have some of their other 3D printed parts for the ship as well, but yeah, these are tiny and absolutely beautiful. Really, really nice. And we've got those pillars there at the front. So I'm going to remove these, tidy this up, build all this up, and then we can get it painted. Okay, we'll just let that dry and then we can fold it over and glue that onto the other side. Right, let's get some glue on that centre section. So I'm using a thin CA here because a medium would have more witness about what we've done on these delicate parts. So that should be good, assuming that I lined it up properly. Not quite. Put some more on. There we go. And that is done. So happy with that. Right, let's get this MK1 etch on. There we go. Give that a second just to dry, and then we can hold it in place and finish the bending. Now, the life ring we're not going to put on until after we've painted it, so I'm actually going to put that on the deck so don't forget about it. And the original kit part we can put in the bin. Okay, that is as close as I can get you in, I'm afraid. So we've got some little handles that we have to fold up. So I'm putting them in the little Tamiya bending tweezers and then fold them against a flat surface. There we go, that's one. Get it straight in my tweezers. And the other. There we go. That's folded. So that can now be glued on. So they go on the sides here, so one there and then one immediately next to it. So it's really important that we've got these angled up at 90 degrees, otherwise it's going to cause an issue with the spacing. So I'm just checking that, yes we have. Right. Tiny amount of medium CA there. Does give me a moment to manipulate it. Didn't quite get that straight. Come on. There we go. That's that first one on. And we've got some bigger ones as well, and Yeah, so I just want to look at those. Again, we've got handles that need to be folded up. So another way of doing it is we get underneath with this razor blade and just flick them up. Which is how I used to do it before I had the bending tweezers. There you go. So it does work, but it's not as good as the bending tweezers, to be honest. I have both sizes of the Tamiya bending tweezers, and I think they are a very, very good tool indeed. I'll just make sure that's nice and square. Yep, all good. So there we go. Just a touch, the tiniest amount of glue on there. There we go. So just got to do another 3 of those all the way around. But I'll do those off camera because you get the idea. That'll look great under paint, I think. So just doing these skylights. They go on the deck edge around the base of the superstructure. So we've got 7 of them to do in this portion, and what I'm doing is I'm doing 3 closed and 4 open. And for those that are doing the open ones, I'm going to paint the covers separately so that we can stow them on the ship. So the general principle is the same as what we've already done. I've also got two larger ones working exactly the same way. I've done 1 open, 1 closed. But I just want to show you how I go about gluing the grills on. So what I'm doing is I've got some medium CA. So we just take a dab of medium CA and then we cover the whole surface so that it's nice and even. If you put a dab on, then it oozes out between the grills, and we don't want that. So let's just try and pick one up. There we go. So you have a moment or two. Now they have a couple of little locks on them that we have to bend downwards a little bit. We can finish that off once they're glued on. And then we just carefully align it and place it. And you actually can't see the glue through the grill once this is dried. And then we're going to put a black wash in, which will darken it a little bit anyway. So yeah, that's how I do it. So you can see that, you can see the glue glistening in the light, but when we paint it, it'll just disappear. Whereas if we put a dab in the middle and then put the part on, it'll ooze through the grill and deform some of the definition there. So, and we absolutely don't want that. So that's how I go about doing them. Well, that's all our parts built up and ready for painting. So because we're putting enamel paints down, I don't need to worry too much about priming these, so I'm not going to. We'll just go straight to the dark grey enamel paint. So I'm going to set my airbrush up, clear the decks, make a cup of tea, and then we'll get some paint down. Right then, let's get painting. So I'm using a number 3 needle here. This is in my Mobius 0.3. It's just a good general size needle for doing this. We're not doing anything particularly exciting or complex. We're just putting paint down, so this will do nicely. Yeah, let's get cracking. I'm going to put my mask on now, so talking's about to finish. Okay, while the paint is drying on the parts for this stern step, my step 5, there, we can look at step 6. Now, not everything in Trumpeter step 4 is going to get done here and now, so you can see step 163 there for the anchors, and that's because I want to put the anchors on much later, because we want to do some weathering and we need to do that before we lay the anchors down. So we need to build up the anchors, weather the anchors and the hull as 2 separate components, but at the same time, so that we're using the same techniques, getting the same colours and so on, and that way it doesn't look odd. But other than the anchors, the anchor chain, pretty much everything else on here we can do now. So that's going to be a combination of the kit parts. We do have some 3D printed resin parts from the MK1 set, so the bonnets, the stops at the back of the capstans there, and I've also got some additional aftermarket parts. We've got some replacement 3D printed roller fair leads to go in. Now the fair leads will be painted white. I think pretty much everything else is getting painted in the grey. I need to just cross-reference that. We've already done this part here, so we can cross that out as completed. So yeah, we've got some more photo etch to be doing as well, because we've got these cables that we need to sort out. So there's a fair bit to do. So my first step is get all the parts together, clean them up, and then we can see where we're up to, by which time, by the time we've done all that, I'll be happy that we can handle our painted parts and probably get them on the stern section, which will be a nice feeling, because we start to see things starting to come alive a little bit. So we purposely did not put the holes into the plastic deck so that we could make sure that they were always perfectly aligned with the wood overlay deck. So we're having to drill holes as we go. We do have the option of removing the location pins, which I've done on some of them because they were larger ones and that sort of suited me. But for some of these smaller ones, it's handy just to remove the little bit of deck so that we can then drill a hole in. My experience is that often the manufacturing tolerances of the wood overlay decks means that they don't end up lining up exactly, and then you're either off centre when you put something in, or you're having to cut away a bit of deck. So it's certainly something I'd recommend that you do. Now, not all kits have decks that don't have the holes pre-drilled, so you know you can't always do it, but we can with this one, so that's nice and easy. I'm just going to test fit, and that goes in okay. And it does, so we can glue that one in. Right, last couple of items to go on. We have a cable reel that goes there, and we have a fire hydrant which on the reference pictures appears to be on this corner here. So we've got the hose reel there, we need to put the hydrant there. So the hydrant has to be painted bright red. It's absolutely tiny, you can just about make it out there, I think, next to the cable reel. And I need to paint the cable reel, so I'm going to go with beige for it's textured as rope, so I'm going to go with beige and then give it a brown wash, which should make that look okay. So that's my next couple of jobs. I'm using 1007 ICM deep red for the fire hydrant and 1041 ICM buff for the other bits. So we just got to do that. So my next job is to do a little bit of painting. Okay, we are now on my step 6, which is coming back to the Folkall. We've got more items to add, plus some additional ones. So where we removed the bonnets originally when we were putting in the wood deck and correcting the error that Trumpeter had made. So we've got some 3D printed ones to put in. So we've got all these parts to clean up now, and then get them prepped for paint, which is my next job. We also need to think ahead to the next step, which will take us back down to the further down the ship, and clean those pots and put them in the pot ready for next go. So I'm gonna clean up all of these and get them all mounted on their little sticks ready for painting. Then we'll clean up the next lot of parts, and then I'll come back to you probably when we're ready for positioning the parts. You don't need to see me cleaning them up, and you don't need to see me painting them particularly. If there's anything of particular interest, I'll take you through it, like now. So in here we're going to be placing our first fair leads. So the kit provided ones are okay, actually. They're not too shabby. But I have these 3D printed ones from Bunker Studios, so I'm going to use those. They are quite a bit more refined, to be honest. You've got a lot more thinness and scale effect in the wall here, and they just look cleaner and better. Now we have to do some alterations to the wood deck when we add the fair leads. So you can see here where the fair lead goes on. At the moment our wood deck carries along that line there, and it shouldn't. It actually should come around the fair lead like so. So the fair lead does not go over the wood deck, it stays on the steel deck. So we'll need to cut a little bit out, we'll need to paint the dark colour in again, and then we'll need to put the fair lead on, which in this instance is going to be painted in the dark grey, but this one here, and we'll have to do exactly the same, this one here will be painted white, so it'll contrast quite nicely. So yeah, a little bit of alteration to do in this step, so we've got more to do than you can visualise from the instructions here. Right, time to do a little bit more painting. Most of the deck fittings that we're putting over the next few stages are in the dark grey, but some of them, like these two, are in the white that we've been using. So these are the 3D printed parts. I'm not priming. Because we're using enamels, we can get away without priming. So we'll just go with the white, knowing that we're probably going to need 2 coats because it's black underneath, but I'm not going to worry about that. Sometimes that can add to sort of your shading effects anyway. So we'll start with the white, and then we can clean the brush through and then move to the dark grey. Cleaning up all the small parts for the deck fittings, it's quite a laborious job, but it's worth doing it because cutting corners, you always end up seeing them. So here, for example, we've got 4, needlessly, in my view, 4 nubs that we have to clean up. We've got seam that's quite heavy that we've got to clean up. And if we don't do it, you'll be amazed how it stands out under paint. So you need to spend the time. It's absolutely worth. Spend the time, don't rush it. Check that you've got everything looking good before you put paint on it, because you're not going to be inclined once you've got paint on it to go, oh, that's bad, I'll clean it up. You're more inclined to go, oh, it'll do, or at least I am. So make sure that you've spent the time to get it right. Now just be careful. You've got seams in one direction, but in the other direction you've got the lip as well. So you want to be careful that you're not removing things that should be there. But yeah, I mean, it takes a couple of hours maybe to clean your parts up. So what I do is I break them down into smaller tasks, and that seems to help. So I'll do 2 or 3 ballards, and then I'll do a different item, and it, you know, changes as good as a rest and all that. But yeah, I mean, all model kits, in my opinion, have a laborious element, or most do. I mean, you're doing a tank, you've got all the tank tracks to do. You're doing a tall ship, you've got all the cannons and gun port lids to do. You're doing a mid-20th century warship, and you've got all the bollards to do, and if it's maybe an ocean liner, you've got possibly all the air vents to do. So there's always something that is a bit mind-numbing. And then once we get past the deck fittings, then the build gets more interesting, because everything you're doing pretty much is unique until you get to things like anti-aircraft guns. But I'm not the sort of person that will, right, okay, we've got 8 anti-aircraft guns to build, I'll just build them all. I tend to do them as I need them, and that breaks up a bit for me, and stops me getting bored. I think it's probably the leading reason for shelf queens is those monotonous bits. And if, like me, you've got other models in your stash, you start getting drawn to something that you know is going to be more fun in that moment. And there's nothing more fun than opening a kit for the first time and looking at the instructions and then cutting the sprue. So, you know, it's easy to start models, especially big projects. They're more difficult to finish. So you have to have a degree of determination, and you have to also have a way of working, in my opinion, so that you know you're going to get through the job. Now, if you follow my channel, you know that I always have a minimum of 2 builds on the go, and I do them in alternate weeks, and that massively helps my ability to keep focused on big long-term projects. But sometimes you need something else just to keep the mojo going, and I think breaking the tasks up and treating every little task as a model in its own right really helps. So, nearly there with this part. You can see how long it's taken me, because I want to make sure it's perfect. There we go. Just polish that up underneath. There. So I'm happy with that now. So that's a little barrel storage case that was mounted on the deck behind one of the main guns. Now let's talk about the rear capstans. So it's a 2-part assembly, and MK1 replaced the capstans on the Folkall but didn't replace the ones on the stern area of the deck, and that's a real shame, because Trumpeter have designed them as 2 parts split in the middle, which is probably the best way of tackling it to make sure you get the detail. And it's got lovely domed head with big chunky rivet detail around it, or bolt detail it would be, and they've done a nice job of it, but it's not quite good enough, so a resin one would have been far better. So I'm just taking the nubs off, and then I'll show you what you need to be doing to get this together. So it has a little D-shaped hole, and the mating part goes in the top like so, and it's quite a tight fit, but there is some slack in it, so you can move it around. And what I'd say is make sure you've aligned all these little lines on it, the little raised lines. Now I found with the first one that I've made that you could line them up at one side, but then they wouldn't line up at the other. This one appears to be better, which is odd, because it's come off the same, well, the same sprue. There was two sprues the same, so why one would seem to line up better than the other, I don't know. All sorts of reasons, I suppose. But yeah, it does mean you get this little line there. I'm not sure what colour we're painting these. We'll have a look in a sec and inform you. So once you've got it lined up, because it's quite a tight fit, you can just leave it there. We'll run some liquid poly in. There we go. Making sure there's no gaps. So that's our rear capstan done. So that's pretty much the only sub-assembly on this section. Now tell a lie. This ventilator casing has something that fits on the back, some form of barrel or tank or something that fits on the back. So we've glued that in ahead of painting because it'll all be one colour. Let's just have a look at what colour those rear capstans will be. So as I suspected, the stern capstans are painted exactly the same as the bow ones, which means that for us we will have this white, brass, red or green, but our caps will actually be the dark grey, not the pale grey that is shown here. So yeah, that's that'll be really interesting actually. It adds just a very important dash of colour into what is otherwise quite a grey ship. So yeah, that'll be good. Right then, so with those capstans done, I've mainly got bollards and fair leads to do, so I'm not going to show you cleaning up those. We'll be replacing the fair leads with the 3D printed resin ones, as we have done on the bow. So I will come back to you when they're all painted up and we're ready to fit them, I would think. So on the Scharnhorst there is 3 different sizes: a large, a medium and a small. And Trumpeter give you 3 different sizes of a fair lead. However, the small one is incorrect. What they've done is they've scaled down the other fair leads and given you exactly the same, just smaller, and that's incorrect. Fortunately, the ones that have been created by Bunker Studio are absolutely spot on, and they don't actually have a roller in, which makes the difference. And they've also got how they're set back slightly on the deck correct, so that's perfect. That is wholly inaccurate. So I do recommend getting one of these sets. They absolutely are helpful. I got these on eBay. I don't know where else you can get them, but I've only seen them on eBay and they come direct from China. But they are very, very good. They're a little brittle. Where you can see these side pieces here, a number of those have broken on me, a little bit shattered whilst trying to remove them. But if you can get them off, they absolutely are perfect 1/200 representations of the actual thing, and I love them. So yeah, and they're gonna really add to the finished look of the ship, I think. So that's all my parts for my step 8 cleaned up. There are some booms that go on in this in step 6 of the instructions. We're going to be doing that a little bit later on because I'm probably going to want to model at least one side of those booms open, and there's no way I'm going to continue building on the hull with deployed booms because they won't be deployed for very long. So that is those parts cleaned up. The paint is drying on my step 7 parts, so I can now look at step 8. Consider the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you don't miss any content that I put out. Model Kit Stuff is a self-funded channel, and I don't do membership or Patreon or buy me a coffee. So if you'd like to further donate to the channel and ensure the cameras keep rolling and the content keeps coming, then you can consider making a donation through my PayPal. You will find a link to that in the text below. You enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you soon.